Attention please. This is a public safety announcement. Due to an incident, it is necessary to evacuate the area. Please leave
go and get your guys, go and get them.
by the nearest exit.
We need some help, yeah.
On the 31st of October 2022, the BBC broadcast an episode of Panorama called Disaster Deniers Hunting the Trolls, in which, quote, the BBC's disinformation correspondent Miriam Stone hunts the disaster trolls who target survivors of terror attacks in the UK and reveals new research about the popularity of these beliefs. The climax of the show is a scene in which the BBC's intrepid specialist disinformation reporter Mariana Spring, accompanied by a beefy cameraman, goes on a troll hunt to Merthyr Tydfil, South Wales.
I can see him. Okay, ready? Hi Richard.
The troll they are hunting is Richard D. Hall, who was manning his stall at the indoor market that day. An excited Mariana makes a ham-fisted attempt to do a cook report job on Richard. The scene falls flat when it becomes clear that her accusation that he is profiting financially from the disaster that fell the 2017 Manchester Arena attack victims amounts to nothing more than the fact that he'd written and published a book on the subject, which was on sale at his market stall. I first stumbled across Rich Planet TV in 2016 and soon became hooked, working my way through all the videos in his archive. For me, it was a treasure trove, and every time I delved in, I came away having learnt something new, and not once was I pressured or guilt-tripped into coughing up a single penny for any of it. By the time of the Panorama Disaster Deniers programme, I was familiar with Richard's work on the Manchester Arena incident. I'd watched his lectures and films on the subject, and even read his book. But in truth, compared to all his other investigations, this one didn't interest me all that much, and it didn't stand out as particularly shocking or revelatory. The BBC's hounding of Richard in 2022 and the subsequent long-drawn-out lawfare case against him caused me to wonder why the establishment would go to such lengths to attempt to discredit him over this particular piece of work. And so I began to scrutinise the Ariana Grande Manchester Arena incident of the 22nd of May 2017 for myself, and I was amazed by what I found. I've decided to share my findings through a series of videos, beginning with a run-through of my method of research. The Manchester Arena incident has generated an avalanche of publicly available material, so much in fact that any attempt to sort through and make sense of it is a daunting task in its own right. It has taken many hours for me to start to feel that I have gained a foothold, and I hope that what I've learnt might be useful to anyone out there who wants to examine the evidence for themselves. Most of the evidence I use comes from the UK Statutory Public Inquiry, known as the Manchester Arena Inquiry, or MAI, which took place between September 2020 and June 2023. If you try using a search engine to find out what the inquiry was all about, it is weirdly difficult to pin anything down. There isn't even a Wikipedia page about it, but I found a way to access the material. Here goes. date is the 28th of August 2024, and I'm going to give you a demo of what happens when I attempt to search for documents that were presented as evidence to the Manchester Arena public inquiry. But first I want to show you a paragraph from this document, which is a guide to the Inquiries Act 2005. It was written for the House of Commons Library by Neil Johnston. So the paragraph I'm interested in is paragraph 3.4, openness and transparency, which says, quote, "There is a presumption in section 18 of the 2005 Act that members of the public will be able to watch the inquiry either in person or via a broadcast. This section imposes duties on an inquiry as to the disclosure of documents and evidence to members of the public. The Chair must take reasonable steps to secure that members of the public are able to obtain or view a record of evidence and documents given to the inquiry." So I'll click on this link to section 18 of the 2005 Inquiries Act to get chapter and verse, and here it is, section 18, public access to inquiry proceedings and information, which says that the chairman must take such steps as he considers reasonable to secure that members of the public are able to obtain or view a record of evidence and documents given, produced or provided to the inquiry or inquiry panel. So I'm a member of the public and I want access to the evidence that was presented at the Manchester Arena inquiry. Let's give it a go. I'm going to use two search engines, Google and Brave. I'll start with Google, and here's the list of returns it gives. The top one is a gov.uk page, and it's to the Manchester Arena inquiry reports. I'll come back to that in a minute, but just scroll down, and then further down there's this one, which is actually very useful, and it's the YouTube channel for the Manchester Arena inquiry. Now, as of today, this is still up and running, and it shows all the sessions that were recorded at the time from the inquiry, so that's actually really useful information. Going back to the first return on the list, this is not the evidence that was presented at the inquiry, but rather the reports that were written. So this collection page brings together reports published by the Manchester Arena inquiry, and if you scroll down you'll see that they are indeed available in PDF format, all there. I'll try the search again with Brave just to show you the difference. And here the first return is different. It's not a .gov.uk page, but rather manchesterarenainquiry.org.uk. Now, this is the page which was set up for the inquiry, and where all the documents, the evidence, and everything related were put. Everything was put on that page at the time, and it built up as an archive of the inquiry. But I'll click on the link to show what happens, basically this, and this page doesn't exist anymore and it's not redirected to anything sensible, you just get this message. Now I know that all the information that was on that page has been archived, and I've found a way to access that archive, but it's not straightforward, which is why I'm showing you this. Going back to the Google search results, I'll show you in a bit more detail what happens when I click on the link, which was the first return, the .gov.uk page. So this is not evidence from the inquiry, it's just the inquiry reports. It was published by the Home Office. But if we scroll down, there is a link that actually looks useful, and it's this: read about the inquiry on the National Archives website. Try that. And here now we are in the Government Web Archives. And this looks useful because there's a web address here, archive.manchesterarenainquiry.org.uk. So is this the archive? Well, this looks promising. There are links to archived material that was put there on particular dates, so we'll try November the 18th. That comes back with an error. Try another one. June the 16th. Now then, this isn't anything to do with the inquiry, this is the inquest, Manchester Arena inquest. That's where these links take you. Try another one, December the 2nd. And again, inquest. Nothing showing under evidence. And there are documents on here, but they're not they're not inquiry documents. They're inquest documents. But there is actually a really useful link on this site, and here it is. Browse A to Z of archived websites. As you can see, there are an awful lot of websites here, but they've made it quite easy to find the Manchester Arena Inquiry website, which is this one here. Now we're in a different page, and as you can see, there are a lot more returns, a lot more dates when material was archived. So I'll take you through this particular archive. The first thing to say about this archive is that everything on it is being put there by date, and what that means is that the evidence accumulates with time, and I'll show you what I mean by that by clicking on the very first date, which was May the 1st, 2020. So there's no actual evidence showing there because it was very early on in the inquiry. Now I'll click on the very last date, which was the 17th of November 2023. This time there's a message to say that the Manchester Arena inquiry has now concluded. Click on the evidence button, and it's showing all of the evidence that was submitted to the inquiry, 177 results. So this is everything. I'll now take you through a couple of examples to show how to find documents stored in the archive. Last year, while watching the Rich Planet TV film Manchester on Trial, I became intrigued by CCTV images from the City Room, which appeared to show fumes of some sort. As part of my own investigation, I wanted to see if I could find any reports of what could be seen on the CCTV cameras by staff as the Manchester Arena incident unfolded. I begin by just using a search engine to search for particular words which I'm interested in. So in this case I've put something like CCTV, smoke and Manchester Arena inquiry. Let's see what comes up. As you'll see, a lot of what does come up is mainstream media reports, and some of these look quite promising, particularly this one from Sky News. So let's have a look at that. And this is it is a report from the inquiry, and the headline says that event manager recalls CCTV screens went white after the blast. So we have the name of the event manager, Miriam Stone, and we have a date, the 14th of April 2021, when this evidence was presented to the inquiry. A bit further down there's this useful bit of information which says that this wasn't the white of static when there is no signal. It was obvious that something was obscuring the cameras. After a few seconds the screen started to clear and I realised it was white smoke. Now there is something about this that I need to point out, which is that the reporter has taken a bit of liberty here, because it looks like Miriam Stone was at the inquiry, because it says Miriam Stone told the inquiry. Now I know that she wasn't actually at the inquiry, but I'll take you through how I know that. Now that we've got a name and a date, it's a way into searching the archive. But before I do that, we'll have a look at the YouTube channel. The Manchester Arena Inquiry official page on YouTube. If we click on videos, this is really useful because it shows that they're all there. The hearings from the inquiry that were videoed at the time. It's not that easy to search, but the best way I've found is to click on this link and it puts them in date order. There's just one thing to be aware of here, and that's that each day had two sessions, an AM session and a PM session. For some reason, when you put it in date order, it only ever shows either AM or PM for each day. But you can find the other one if it's AM and you can't find the right bit in there, and it must be in the PM session, and you can find it. It just takes a bit of searching. I won't go through that. So the date we have is the 14th of April 2021, which is here. This is the YouTube video of the hearing on the 14th of April 2021. It's only 1 hour 22 minutes long. I find with a lot of these ones they're 3-4 hours, so that's pretty short. Even so, it's hard to find the exact moment that you want, so I found a way of doing that by clicking on the transcript, show transcript, and then you can search that. Miriam Stone, and from that you can find the moment where the evidence starts, which happens to be here. Click on that, it takes you directly to it, which is really useful. Now I'm going to play a couple of minutes from this, and I'll explain why in a minute.
So the next statement to be read is aspects of the evidence of Miriam Stone. And so you'll appreciate that Miriam Stone has already given detailed evidence to the inquiry within Chapter 7 over the 4th and 5th of November of last year. And so, sir, I'm going to deal with the aspect of her statement of the 8th of November of 2017 that deals with her involvement in the night. And so I'm not going to give the...
The lady speaking here is Sophie Cartwright QC, and she's one of the barristers who was appointed as counsel to the inquiry. Miriam Stone, as I said earlier, doesn't give evidence, and the key word here is aspects. Aspects of the evidence of Miriam Stone are being presented by Sophie Cartwright. Along the way, she mentions a couple of things. One is that Miriam Stone did give evidence to the inquiry on the 4th and 5th of November 2020, and that the statement that she's extracted these aspects of evidence from was the 8th of November 2017. So I wanted to see if I could track down any of the documents relating to this. So I'll go back to the inquiry archive and take you through what I found. I have bookmarked the page for the archive just because it's easier. It's a long web address there. And here we are again. The date we're interested in is the 14th of April 2021. So if I click on that and find the nearest date after the 14th, because that was when these documents would have been archived, which was the 16th. Which takes you to this page. Now, by trial and error, I found a trick here into finding the documents quickly, and it's actually this link, hearings and transcripts by hearing date. The 14th of April comes up near the top because it was the 16th when these documents were archived, and there are two active links here. One is to the transcript of the session, and this is a really useful document. And it's the whole day, it's not just the AM or PM session. I'll show you that in a minute, but actually I always click on this link, and the reason is it brings up this page which provides the transcript here and any related evidence. So this is the transcript, and it's day 87, the 14th of April 2021. This is a really useful document to have because it's the whole day, it's not just the AM or PM session, and you can search it for whatever you want. It's very handy for that. Back to this page, that's the transcript. Now, related evidence. If there was any evidence submitted to the inquiry on that day, it would appear here. But it just so happens that on this day, no evidence was submitted to the inquiry. So all you've got here is a transcript again, which is frustrating because now I'm going to have to search for what might be available on other days. We were told that Miriam Stone gave evidence on the 4th and 5th of November 2020, and there are a couple of ways of searching for that. I'll just give you a warning about these search boxes here. You can try it for yourself, but if you try, for instance, looking for anything in these ones that are directly linked to the Manchester Arena inquiry page, it always comes back with this error. That's what I found. The only one that's actually any use is this one up here, but the problem with this one is that it covers the entire National Archive and not just the Manchester Arena Inquiry. But we'll try it anyway just to show you. The ones on top tend to be related to the inquiry, although it has returned an awful lot of results. And from this you can find a way in to evidence relating to that witness. And here it is. It's brought it up quite nicely that there are 2 days where she was a witness, the 4th and the 5th. So she was the only one seemingly on the 4th where there was evidence submitted. We'll have a look at that first. This is quite typical when you do find evidence relating to a session or a witness. There's a string of documents. They all have an inquiry reference number. Now this is quite useful if you find a nice piece of evidence and you want to keep hold of it. Make sure you have this reference number, because that is something you can search for in this box and it'll bring it up. They're all downloadable PDFs as well, so anything that you find, it's important to save it. But by and large there's a tsunami of documents, and a lot of them are procedural type things, such as that you see here, contingency plans, the tabletop access. Now that might be interesting, but I won't look at it just yet. Risk assessments, that sort of thing. Exercise Sherman. Again, some of these might be interesting, but what we're looking for is the witness statement that Sophie Cartwright read out or summarised or extracted bits from, and there isn't any mention here of a witness statement. So back to here, and we've got the 5th of November. Again, a long list of documents, but amongst them there are witness statements. There are a few actually. I've already looked at these. The first one, the second one, third one, 2 there, and I've checked them all. Now none of them, as far as I can tell, relate to the evidence that Sophie Cartwright presented on the 14th of April. And this tends to be how witness statements, if they're available at all, and a lot of them don't seem to be, are presented for the public, and it's just 1 page with a snippet that they used at the time on that particular session, which, okay, fair enough. And a lot of them as well tend to have redacted areas, and again, fair enough. But it does make finding any relevant information that bit harder. So that's Miriam Stone. I'll now take you through a second example. Another question I wanted answers to about the smoke was how long it stayed around in the city room and whether it was still there later on in the evening. And this article here caught my attention, and it's the testimony of a paramedic called Vaughan, who, as it says in this Manchester Evening News article, entered the city room at 11:15 p.m. on that evening. And what she says is actually very interesting, because it says that advanced paramedic Vaughan said that she struggled to identify wounds in the darkness and smoke as she triaged and treated patients who survived the blast. And further down, there's a bit more here, and it says that she said, "It seemed to me it was a lot darker in there. The lighting was not sufficient. It was quite a hazy atmosphere in there from dust or smoke. So it was a lot darker in there than it was outside on the concourse. It wasn't just the lighting problems. It was the fact that many of the patients were in pools of blood that may not have been their own." And there are photos to go along with this article which are credited to the Manchester Arena inquiry, so I wondered whether I could actually find these in the evidence. The date on this article is the 8th of June 2021. I found that these dates on these articles in the mainstream media are quite reliable, and they do give you an idea of where to look in the archives. So I'll find the right date, which was the 8th of June 2021, go for the 11th, and we get onto this page. So hearings, transcript by hearing date. Click on this link to get the transcript and the evidence, and now you can download the transcript, which is really useful. Click on the related evidence link, and this time we can see there is evidence for that particular hearing. But one tip here that I've discovered is useful is it mentions Vaughan here, and this link is active, so if you click on it, it brings up another hearing from the 22nd of March 2021, and she was also a witness there, so there might be evidence in there that's useful. But we'll stick with this one. And as you can see, there's a lot of documents again, similar kind of idea from the previous one, and some of this is very interesting. It's worth having a look through, but what I was particularly interested in was the photos of Vaughan that night, and I know they exist because the article, the Manchester Evening News article, show them. That's one, so they should be there somewhere. What I found is that if it says extract of GMP sequence, that's likely photos, but they don't make it very obvious where they are because it's a very broad range of time and they all look the same. So I'll just click on one to show you. This is the kind of thing that was actually shown to the inquiry that day, but none of these relate to Vaughan. I'll just find one that does. This one is of Vaughan, as it says here, and it was taken at 23:15:15, and as it says, Chris Hargreaves and Vaughan approached paramedic Patrick Ennis. Now this will take me nicely on to a much better way of viewing these photos, and that's the Rich Planet CCTV image viewer, which is absolutely brilliant and the way to go if you're interested in photos from the inquiry. Now I'll take you through the CCTV image viewer that's been made available on the Rich Planet TV website. This is really an impressive piece of work, and I do hope that more people will start using it to investigate the evidence that was presented at the Manchester Arena inquiry. Down the side bar here, there's a link to the Manchester attack. just before I get on to this, as you can see, there's reams of evidence here, all really useful and very interesting. Just one that I want to point out is this one, which is UKCT videos. So UKCT was, I say was because he's not actually active anymore, but he laid the foundations for this investigation into the Manchester Arena incident. He was known as UK Critical Thinker. I don't know his real name, don't want to know. That's the name he went under. And all of this evidence is very useful and fascinating. So at the top of this menu, once you've got onto the Manchester attack, is the CCTV image viewer, and this is it. The example I was using before was Vaughan, which I'll take through. What Rich Planet has done here is take all of the images from those PDF documents that were presented to the inquiry and put them in a database that's really good and easy to search. So if you're interested in any photos from any aspect of the Manchester Arena incident, this is the place to go. It's pretty straightforward, and I won't go through the whole thing because you can work it out for yourself. So if you click on items, what you get is a person of interest list, and these are all people who were caught on CCTV or were giving evidence to the inquiry. Scroll through, and here we have Northwest Ambulance, and here we have Vaughan and Christopher Hargreaves. Select that. There are a couple of ways to do this now. The first way I'll go through is to play it as a sequence from the first image to the last, which is really useful and can give you an idea of how things played out. There's a slide bar down here where you can set the delay. Now I happen to know there aren't many images in this one, so I'll increase that. Select begin, press play, and it goes through. Here they are going up the stairs, across the bridge, into the city room, talk to Patrick Ennis, further into the city room, a couple of images there, and then back out along the bridge, through the casualty clearing station and outside. So that just gives you some idea. Now the other way of doing it is to just simply click through like this, and the ones that I was particularly interested in were these ones in the city room. Now as you can see, a lot of the image is redacted. The reason I'm interested in these particular photos is because at the inquiry, Vaughan said that there was a hazy atmosphere in the city room from dust or smoke, and it was a lot darker, and that the visibility was so terrible that they couldn't assess injuries very well. And this was 3/4 of an hour after the incident happened. So I wanted to just check the picture against the testimony to see what I could see, whether what Vaughan had said matched the picture. Now I'm not going to comment on that here, except to say that the reason I was so interested in it is because at the inquiry, the chairman, when Vaughan gave this evidence at the inquiry, the chairman didn't question her at all on whether the haze in the atmosphere was dust or smoke. She said it could have been dust or smoke. She didn't clarify what it was, and the chairman didn't question her about that. And I found that really strange, because if this was 45 minutes in and those victims have been in that room all that time, and I would wonder, as the chairman of that inquiry, I would wonder if the atmosphere of dust or smoke was causing them breathing difficulties, or even the rescuers, was it causing them breathing difficulties, that sort of thing, and what could have been done better on the night if that was the case. But there was no discussion of that at all, which struck me as odd. So that's the CCTV image viewer.